We are getting so close to 100 episodes, y'all. It has been 5 years, going on 5 years. I think, no, just July will be 4 years. We will be at 4 years. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey, and we've continued to provide you guys with weekly episodes of lived experiences from all different types of external childcare, from adoption to kinship to guardianship to we even had some crown wards across the pond give their experiences. I also want to thank a lot of the birth parents. Right now, there's a whole conversation surrounding birth parents. Should they be included in the conversation of reform? And I believe so, but I do believe that they serve a purpose at the table, and the children should be always at the lead and the ones adopted or the ones affected by their adoption, right? And this is why once a year we do have birth parents on the podcast. But this year we didn't do it, guys, because I ran out of time. So I want to say we are wanting you guys to still have 3 to 4 episodes from birth parents. So if you're a birth parent, we miss Mother's Month, so we can still slide you guys in for June or July, and making sure that your story is shared. I do think that y'all's story is important. We do try to slide in 3 or 4 of those a year for our audience. Speaking of the audience, can y'all make sure y'all go to Apple Podcast and leave us a review? We haven't had a review since I think last January, so a couple months. It's now June. That's 6 months. So if you guys are listening, and I see you guys are listening because the numbers are there, can you guys go let other folks know how you're liking it just by simply leaving a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star rating or review on Apple Podcasts and also subscribing to us on Spotify. And a reminder, guys, you can also watch the podcast live on YouTube as I record it. You can just go to my YouTube, which is my name, Carlos Dillard, and you can also watch the edited version of the videos on YouTube once the podcast comes out. So I think those are all the announcements. As always, my books are always on sale. Go grab you one. It's available everywhere books are sold. What are the state abort the adoption and what are the state of memoir of foster care? I am releasing the audiobook. I know a lot of y'all have been waiting for the audiobook for what are the state abort the adoption. That will be out on Christmas. So that'll be a great Christmas gift for everyone. And just like 4 years, 5 years ago when we came out with book one, I will be giving away 30 free audiobooks. So make sure you stay tuned on that giveaway. And I think that's all the announcements we have over here. So I'm so excited to hear our next guest and their lived experience. Priscilla, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So if you guys can see, listeners, Priscilla has the most beautiful, beautiful curly hair. The people on YouTube, look how look, you made me. I might have to undo this hair because I'm the curls are curly. The curls are curly.
It is a
Um,
good day here. That's
it's
why
a good day.
it is.
It's a good. I know I have those good days, right? Your curls are just perfect. So Priscilla, let's just start off with your lived experience. What is your experience in the external child welfare system?
Well, I am a New York City adoptee. And if you know anything about New York City adoptees, you have to go through the foster care system. And so everybody who's adopted, no matter, unless it's a private, rich person and, those kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you're a foster child. And my experience was just really, really eye opening, I would say, because at the age of 9, I found out I was adopted.
At
And
9?
at 9,
Wow. How'd you find
my
out you were adopted at 9?
adopted mother, we were driving in a car going to the mall, Green Acres Mall, which is now shutting down, in Valley Stream, New York. And on the news, like, car radio, it was, oh, adopt a dog from North Shore Animal League. And, me, a child, I'm like, how do we get this dog? What is adoption? And my mom was like, well, adoption is when you, uh, animal, and she was trying to describe the dog at the time can't take care of it, so somebody brought it in so somebody can adopt it and take care of it. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh. And she's like, well, you're adopted.
That's just how she
and
said it.
and that's how I guess in that moment she realized she was wrong.
Mm.
And it never resolved after that. It was just something like it was just there. We went
Mm.
shopping that day, and that is now a trigger. As we talk about childhood things, people cannot buy me things now, because in my
Mm.
mind you are trying to make up for something that you have done, and that's nothing to that person. That's my unhealed trauma from that day. And I know, sometimes people don't know it, and I know it, but I like to tell people, don't buy me gifts. That's not how you get me, because that's never going to heal. I always think, what you got behind that gift.
Yeah.
So, um, years coming up, I used to always tell people I was adopted after that. Like, and I guess to my mom's,
And your parents are black, I'm assuming.
yes, they are.
Okay. So I was like, how did you hopefully it wasn't transracial adoption?
Right. Like, I I am very different than everybody in my family, but I didn't think I was adopted until that day.
Mm.
So I would tell anybody who would listen, I'm adopted. Like we'll go to family reunions and I'm like, I don't, they're not my parents. And my cousins would be like, get out of here. Like people think I was crazy for a very long time
Hmm.
because this is 1978. So they thought my mother was pregnant. Everybody had this, no, I seen your mother pregnant. I don't know what y'all were looking at, but I know the story. And yeah, so that's how I found out. It wasn't until I was 18 and I got a lawyer, I figured out how the adoption system worked.
Mm.
Because I wanted to find I always face searched and in New York, that's a horrible thing because you see millions of people every day. But I used to ride the trains and look around and see if I can see somebody who even looks like me.
Yeah. So were you in foster care as an infant? That's why you don't remember being home? Like, how did you not remember that you were a foster
So
youth?
according to them, I was adopted the next day. My mother was 15, my father was 17. The day after she gave birth, they took me home and I was adopted. When I started going through my paperwork,
That's not the legal process. It takes 6 to 12 months.
right, and my parents that adopted me were getting paid up until my 18th birthday. You don't get paid if you
Well,
adopted
that's not true. It depends.
foster adoption. If you're foster adoption,
Yeah.
you can get paid. But in New York law, once you have an adoption and
Uh-huh.
I
They
have a
don't
birth
offer
certificate,
any stipends.
no, the stipend stop. You left foster care behind.
Hmm.
You have now adopted that as your child.
I
So
do know
that
some I do know some cases if you're like medically fragile or if you have like mental issues, they'll give you
money,
stipends,
yeah.
but not yeah, that's so were you just in foster care the whole time?
So that's what my lawyer said it looks like, and that's what gets the paperwork. So in New York, you don't ever see that paperwork.
Mm-mm.
Once you're adopted,
It's sealed forever.
it's sealed
For
forever. You're
like
never,
99 years.
and put away to Iron Mountain, never seen again. I have my adoption paperwork.
Does it
And
say
that,
adoption on it?
no.
Mm.
So,
That's your foster care paperwork.
hello, but it's in the adoption. Hello, but it's in the adoption. My parents have no record of my adoption. They have a birth certificate and a social security card. They don't have
And your
anything
name,
signed.
their name is not on your birth certificate.
Yes, it is.
How did they do that?
I don't know because I have my mom's original birth certificate with her name on there.
So how did they get another birth certificate with your name on?
They said that's
Wow.
yeah. So it's like multiple layers. And then my birth mother remembers a rich couple was supposed to get me. My adopted father remembers a rich couple was supposed to get me because he said he got into it with the gentleman the day they
Mhm.
came and got me. And those people are nowhere on my paperwork. But then my birth
Oh,
father
you broke
never,
up.
oh, I'm sorry. Hello?
There you go. You said they're not on your paperwork?
They're not on my paperwork. And then also, my father never signed a surrender. I was supposed to go to my father and his family, according to him, when I found him.
Your biological father.
Yep.
So was he not aware that you were being born? Why wasn't he at the hospital?
He was aware I was being born. My mom was 15 and they sent her to live in a maternity home in
Wow.
Manhattan. They made up a lie that my father attacked her and that he was a vicious individual. So, and that he was going to the military and he didn't want anything to do with me.
Mm.
My father and his family remembers them coming to the house, his sister being pregnant at the time. Him, his mother, and his other two sisters were like, yes, we'll take the baby, we'll raise her. Well,
Mhm.
raise the baby because they didn't know at the time.
Mhm.
And the social worker was like, oh, this is perfect, wrote it down and never came back. So they waited the 9 months And they expected, oh, somebody should be dropping you off. My father said he saw my mother at the corner store and said, oh, I gave our baby up for adoption. And my dad said he lost it
Mm.
because he was like, he was ready. He was ready to have a child. He was ready for this experience. His family prepared for this experience
For
for me
them,
and
yeah.
yeah. And his rights were violated because as that we, like I said, I have our paperwork. He never signed a letter of surrender. So natural law should have been, I should have been raised by my father and his family instead of put into the system
Yeah. Yeah.
because somebody got paid. And if there was a rich couple that's on nobody's paperwork that was there to obtain me that day,
Hmm.
where was that money? Was that, was that, and the more I researched, the more I kept finding the same lawyer that signed papers not only for me, but several other people that were looking for their, biological parent around that time. And I was just like,
Wow.
why would you be on at least 10 of our paperwork? And everyone is from that same maternity home. That, wayward girls, girls that were prostitutes, girls that were already in foster care, throwaway girls.
Mm.
You're taking their babies.
And selling them.
When, yeah, basically. And then you're selling them, and that's the bigger part that I have a problem with. You're selling them to psychopaths, sociopaths.
How did they get you on the foster care system then, though?
I'm in there. You
This
when
is.
I
I
couldn't,
need to see this caseload. I need to see this case file.
I couldn't. So when I applied years ago, you apply for a city job. I saw it. I said it was ACS. You could be there as a clerk. I was like, oh, perfect. I
Hmm.
applied. I heard right back from HR, you can never work here
Why not?
because I'm in the system, and they never want me accessing, like putting my social in
Hmm.
and seeing my paperwork. She said, I will never work there.
Mm.
And she was like, you can work anywhere else in the New York, but they will never hire you in this office because they know you're a foster child.
Mm.
And I was just like, but if I know and what's the there's something with my case. And it's the bigger part was my father never signed a letter of surrender. That's illegal. Either
Yeah.
way, my adoption, them
And
putting me in foster care.
it sounds crazy, but there was just this, I don't know, was that Georgia or North Carolina? They found all of those young girls, teenage girls who were brought in from another country, and they were literally just like breeders. Like they were getting
Hmm.
them pregnant and then adopting their children out. So
Yeah.
this is something that's been happening.
Yeah. And this is before computers. This is 1978. How many kids in New York City went through a system and disappeared?
Mm.
Because you could have came in from anywhere, Connecticut, Massachusetts with money, Jersey with money. And these are just simple civil workers. Hey, let me go ahead and slide you 10,000. 10,000 in 1978 is a lot of money for a baby.
Yeah.
This young 15-year-old girl is pregnant. She don't know nothing. We could just scramble some paperwork up. I got lucky. I got lucky and I went to a family that was like, yeah, yeah, my the way it landed on me at 9 was a little rough, but after
But
that,
yeah, how was your childhood with your
um,
adoptive family?
I am very different. I'm very outspoken. My dad says I have a fire, and that's been since a childhood. And they're very quiet and church-like, and I'm a questioner. What's this? What's this? What's this? What? And so it was always a fight, especially with my mom, because I believe she saw a powerful person and a person that can take a licking and get back up and keep doing something else, because that was my whole childhood,
Mm.
was not from them but from outside sources. Things would happen and it would be like, all right, well, this is the next day, and I would keep going. But they didn't know how to handle a teenager that was battling with her own identity, who was battling with being adopted, who didn't know where she came from, what people really don't know, that really isolates you from people when you don't know where you come from, good, bad, or indifferent. You don't know who you are, but you got to present to other people, and you got to present in perfection,
Mhm.
because I was their baby girl. So I was always on on a level that I could never have that crack. So secretly, I would always have a double life. When I realized at 14 that I could hide things from them and be a different person, I did. And
Mm,
I started to break away from the family. So much so at 16, I got my own place and left.
wow.
And I never went back. Well, I got pregnant in my 20s and went back, had my baby and then left again. But I never went back because I didn't feel a connection. And to this day, and I hate to say it because whoever sees, it's hard sometimes. I just don't understand why they raised me from birth. Why don't I have that connection?
Because
And
it's just natural. Even because even if they raise you from birth, it doesn't mean that you're going to connect. And I think a lot of adoptive parents need to realize that. Like, but that's part of adoption. They did the best. They gave you a good, stable life, right? And that's
yeah,
all they were supposed to give you. This connection, if it happens, that's beautiful. But
because I
that's like meeting your first boyfriend you ever met and then thinking you're gonna be connected forever with them.
true
That's literally insane. That's literally
'cause-
insane.
because I have as and I've been to therapy for many years, kind of battling this, and I have told my therapist that I have a weird connection where I have a loyalty, and that's what he sees it as. They saved me from a certain whatever,
Hmm.
an unknown. And in my mind, I owe that back. So anything that comes up that gives us friction, I'll put it to the back of my mind, or I won't talk about it, or I'll bury it, and I'll be their child and step up and do things and just blindly do that and never address my feelings until one day it actually bubbled up
Hmm.
and it was like spilled out. And my dad was like, he didn't even know what to do with it. It was so much. And it was just years of, I look the other way, I don't say anything. And I feel that you house, you clothe.
Hmm.
And I have brothers and sisters of foster care and adoption. So, you make these connections when you talk to people and you hear their stories and you go, yeah, I was too. And they become your family outside of your family. And I've heard the horror stories and I look back and I'm like, Churchy and Churchy weren't that bad versus somebody who intentionally takes another person's child
Hmm.
and beats them or
Yeah, like my
molests
parents
them.
did.
Yeah. Like that's a certain level of like you don't have to. That's like, that's unnecessary.
Hmm.
So if you're born to a psychopath, that's if you go out and you hunt and the fact that you went and signed paperwork and was like, yeah, and presented. And that's why monitoring and stringent psychological evaluations. We need to get away from this tip tap. If you care about children and you care about abortion and all this other stuff, care about the children that are alive, that are sitting
Exactly.
here.
So I don't know if you've catched any of have caught any of my lives, but I often have this conversation on TikTok. Like, should white people be allowed to adopt? Should people who don't agree with the LGBTQIA be allowed to adopt? And people are like, anyone can adopt as long as they're loving. I'm like, no. And the
What about the Hart
requirements.
family?
It,
Those women who adopted those 8 African American children who went from state to state,
mhm,
defrauding multiple states, where
mhm,
multiple people complained about them, complained that those children were being mistreated, and sat there and said, those people say one thing to the social worker, but behind closed doors, they're like, oh, these beep, 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 beep. And nobody said a word. And these children wind up suffering the ultimate suffering.
mhm.
Why?
Because people
Nobody,
don't care about kids.
right? Nobody,
I've spent 5, 6 years doing this work, and you can show them the most horrible things. They'll be like, well, there are some good stories.
I've had, and in the extent that I've had this argument that I had to sometimes pull back from social media, especially debating certain people. I mean, I understand being, and you can have the right to believe in whatever you believe in, abortion and stuff, but I want to see you rally for kids that are here, the way
Mhm,
you're rallying for. abortion rights. I want you outside of foster care telling them that they need to tear down the system that they have and rebuild a new system. And let's take a
Hmm.
look at these parents, and let's take a look at these kids, and let's take a look at
So
these complaints.
what are some reform that you can see as far as the background process? What are some things that you think that they should encourage or like do?
So if we start doing like a PCL monitoring psych evaluation, that takes out 25% of people who are just there for monetary reasons. It picks up on certain psychological behaviors that are not
You
aligning
said a
with
piece. You said a PCL.
PCLR or PCLK.
What are
It's
that? What does that stand for?
that's for psych I have to relook it up because I'm on my phone. I'm so sorry. PCLR. It's
A psychology test.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm seeing it
So this
here.
way it's a more in depth than what
So it's
is
the Harris Psychology Checklist revised. It's a psychological assessment tool used to assess the presence and intent or an extent of psychopathy in individuals, particularly those within the criminal justice. Okay, yeah. So they just making sure people is sane.
right. That you have a level of capacity to take care of a child, that you don't have a depraved indifference
And I
that
think a
show.
test like that would also pick up on people who are just doing it for infertility. Because even
Yes.
as a person who advocates, I pick up on it because they'll say, I wanted a child so bad, but I was infertile, but I'm gonna go adopt, and I'm so happy. And I'm like, okay, and then we'll talk, and it keeps going back to, well, why are you adopting? Well, I'm infertile, but why are you adopting? Because I want a baby. But why are you adopting? Because I want a baby. And I'm like, so you don't want to help a child, you want your own child. So what if this child is nothing like you? Which it
Yeah.
won't be.
This
And
child's
that's where
totally
we get into
different.
problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Because
I
I
even think that
mean,
that needs to be looked at.
that is definitely would be need, like, conversations need to be deeper. And
Hmm.
the other bigger part is the social workers are not paid enough. These are people with not only bachelor's degrees, with master's degrees, and you're paying them $11 an hour and they
Well,
have a
that's the thing.
caseload.
They're not required. Most states don't have their social workers are not actually MSWs. They're just people they found on Craigslist. This has been my biggest issue. Catholic Social Services, Bethany Christian Services, all of those private foster care companies,
Yes.
they don't have to have degrees. They just train them. They get on the job training. These are people who literally they make $15 to $25 an hour. And I know this because I work with them. They don't have any
Wow.
childhood training. They didn't go to school for early childhood development. They definitely didn't go to school for social work. And I'm not saying that all of them are bad because there are some people who are just really good at their job because they're good humans and
Yeah.
they're good at picking up. But I do think that there should be a little bit more training. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't, I do think we should pay them more. Who have
Yes.
people who have the MSWs? I don't think that you should be able to get 30 to 60 hours on the work clock training and work with these families because this is very important. This is really important. Another thing that I often say that people kind of get upset with me is that I believe that foster parents should be federal employees. They deserve a paycheck. But there are
Hmm.
several reasons behind this. One, it is a job, in my opinion. The fact that people keep saying it's volunteer work, it is, but this is why they are weaponizing the money, right? So instead of having them weaponize money, let's give them a salary, and then let's make sure that that stipend is put on like a food stamp type card where we can actually see where it's being used, and
Yep.
we just do, and we have the accounting department like look over it, making sure
Hmm.
they can get audited. So if you went and bought, I don't know, a car or something on there when you weren't supposed to, you're going to have to pay the federal government back. And there's actually federal laws. If you break a federal law, you're going to federal prison, right?
Right.
So that's why I believe even foster parents should be federal employees because if they beat a child, guess what? You're going to federal prison. If you lie about their health or their safety, you're going to prison. If you
Right.
steal money from them, you're going to
Going
prison.
to prison.
There need
Right.
because a lot of these foster parents just don't get any consequences because they're volunteers.
And my parents continued after I aged and moved out of the house. They continued to be foster parents up until their 70s, where
Wow.
they were part of an emergency batch where kids were pulled from another foster care. They would get the call in the middle of the night can you take care of this child? And they would drop that child off immediately to my parents.
Mm,
So that's not a volunteer when you're in your 60s and 70s to get a call in the middle of the night to get this baby that's been
mm,
burnt or beaten or, whatever. And you got to now, and my mom, like, she cares for these children. Like, she sat here, whatever happened, she made sure they were fed, they went to
mm.
school, that they were loved, that if this was their last home, this was the home that they remembered. And she has pictures of all our, all these children. So she's the one I know. Yes. Why does she have and she used to get the, oh, we have to go ahead and recertify and why is everybody getting the same stuff? Is
Mm-mm, probably
everybody
not.
getting, because they used to go in every year, have to show paperwork when the last time I lived there, when the last time my daughter visited, and
Wow.
yeah,
That's
like
crazy.
so they used to come in with paperwork all the time, visits from the social worker to see how their house was kept. And my mom, old school New York, that thing, white glove clean.
She
So
got plastic on the couch still.
white glove clean. You don't live in the living room, you live in the kitchen. Go sit in the kitchen.
Yes.
So never anything wrong up until their 70s. Like they had to be forced to not take any more children. They had to be forced. I had to
Oh.
sign paperwork and I was like, you're now too old. You have to
Hmm.
take care of yourself. And I really have to think, I don't want you falling asleep and this kid's running around. And so you done, and I
You held
understand the
enough
one,
kids.
yeah, there's so many kids that have come through. And I'm just like, I can never turn my back. And they're like a really big reason why I can never turn my back on anybody. And why
I
I
love
fight
that.
hard today because they've never turned their back. In the 1970s, two black people decided to adopt a child, for no reason other than because they had my brother. I have an
Hmm.
older brother. So it was just like, oh, there's somebody in need. And they were in the foster care system. So it's
Mm.
not like they just wanted, to fill a need from themselves. My
Yeah.
mom always, there's so many people out there that need help. There's so many people that doesn't, the voice of the voiceless. And
Yep.
that's one thing I guess I can find a commonality with because my voice is big enough where I can be the voice of the voiceless. So I see adoption and foster care as my soapbox because stuff
Hmm.
does have to change because there's so many kids that go through the system and now we have people violating laws, taking kids out of foster care and deporting them. And that's not a first. It's just now a known that's been known for how long that kids have disappeared in foster care.
Mm.
And that's something that needs to be investigated, reevaluated, and really looked at because we're here for the kids. And
Absolutely.
if we can't, this produces a problem further down the line that we now turn our backs on. When that kid ages out and is in a group home or is homeless on the street, it's an automatic turn to the back. Nobody wants to deal with anybody homeless. Nobody cares why you're homeless. You don't care that this kid came through a horrible situation in a foster care system that should have been advocating for him.
Mm.
And now you have a homeless teenager with no guidance, living by whatever they know on the streets,
Hmm.
and you're turning your back, and he's seeing society or she's seeing society always with the back to what do you expect? Mentally, what do you expect this person to have? And I just want people to see the trickle effect. Yes, it starts at birth, but it doesn't end there. Let's stop thinking about just abortion. Let's think about, okay, this person did the right thing, gave this baby up. What do we do after that? Protect that child.
We got the first step to protect the child is we got to change the legal process. We shouldn't
Yeah,
be changing birth certificates. We
yeah,
shouldn't be changing identities. Adoption in the United States needs to resemble something like guardianship, or even it can expire at 18 if the adoptee wants to, right? So I think that's a huge first step.
Hmm.
But I do think, and that's why a lot of people when they come to my platform, they think that I'm like anti-adoption. I'm not. I just think that we can't continue the same process while there's so many issues, right?
Right.
That's like trying to put out a fire while there's gasoline still going. Babes,
Right.
let's stop the gasoline first,
Hmm.
and then we can put out the fire, right? Um, but in the same hand, like you said, to do this, a lot of policy changes needs to start happening. A lot of
Yep.
laws need to start happening. More people need to understand how the process actually works. And that's one thing that I try to do every day is just like ask people, do you know how the legal process is working? Do you know about foster care? Do you know the money that's involved? And a lot of people just don't, because adoption is beautiful. And when
Yeah.
we just have a monolithic idea about something, we don't really care, right?
Hmm.
And once you start and getting more information and looking at the statistics and looking at what's happening to adoptees and the mental health crisis that they're having, the addiction crisis that they're having, this weird connection between I don't know, I went down this rabbit hole like 2 years ago. Most serial killers are adopted, which I just think is fascinating. Even men and women. Irene,
Hmm.
what was it? She was adopted.
Yep. It's a
Ted
disconnect.
Bundy
It's,
adopted.
yeah, they was like it's the
um
disconnect
they're all
from,
adopted.
yeah,
They're all the clown
the
adopted.
it's something, things like this need to be researched to see why. Is it
Hmm.
environment? Is it, something with that original, the birth parent? They never
Hmm.
got, with my birth record, they never got any medical information from my mother. My mother died
Mm.
90 days after I met her. She battled three different cancers from
Oh
the
my
age of
goodness.
18 to 48. That's something that you need to know. A gen mark for me, because now I had to go get tested to make
So
sure.
how did you reunite with her?
So I wind up looking for her through, New York had Birth Index. And a friend of
Mm.
mine told me about the Birth Index. And at that time, it was available where you could just walk in and go look at them. They're not now, interesting enough. And you could just look at your year, and the last, I think, four of your birth certificate number is the same as your adoption number. They only changed the first batch of numbers, which
Mm.
I thought was weird. So you literally had to go through the book, and it's very small type, and look for that number. So I was the second book, 20 pages from the last page.
Mm.
So it took me 2 days, and I found her last name. And because I had her last name and the information that my adopted parents had, that she grew up in Queens, I just went through Facebook, and 1978 Queens, I was harassing people.
That's
Who
what I
was
did
pregnant?
too.
Who was pregnant in 1978 in Queens? And who did you hear? And this one lady was really upset. She was like, you're really ruffling feathers. I don't care.
Yep.
Like, I mean, honestly, I understand that y'all make mistakes, but you have to realize that that is a lifetime. There's a child out there. You can never think that that child would never want to contact you, or you just have to sit and wait. This is your day. And I happened to stumble on her picture looking at a bunch of things, and it was like looking in a mirror. It was my exact face. I sent this picture out to everybody, and they thought it was a picture of myself. And they said, "You found her. That is her." And I wind up finding her phone number, I think maybe 2 or 3 days later, because I
Hmm.
sent out letters to all addresses that I could find of her. And I just couldn't wait. So I started dialing all the phone numbers that was available. And I
Hmm.
got her one day, and
Wow.
she sounded mean, and I just let it all out. I said, "Listen, this is who I am. Are you my mother?" And she said, "I've been waiting for this call for 33." At the time, I was 33, for 33 years.
Wow.
So when we reconnected, she told me that she only has little time left, that she was already 8 months into a six month death sentence. They told her she was going to die 6 months ago. So I rushed back to New York, and I saw her. She was 80 pounds, maybe. And I knew I just had to gather information. I had to gather as much information as I could, because I could hope, I could wish, I could pray, but I saw her.
Mm.
And when I met my dad, and being how horrible the story is on his end, he was like, it was still closure. As bad as it was, as bad as it seeing her die, because even when she was dying, she fell into a coma after Thanksgiving. 2 days before my birthday. I stayed in the hospital with her the whole entire time. 2 days after my birthday, we finally cut the machines off. So about 4 days in the hospital. And I just talked to her the whole time, just watched TV and mourned because even though what she did was horrible at the age of 15 and she carried that up until, her death, I had to mourn her because she was my
Mhm.
mother and she made a mistake. And that was it. I couldn't beat her upside the head. I couldn't, she made a mistake. Either she let, and this is what I do believe, she let that system tell her what to do. That adult social worker told her this is what she needed to say, this is what she needed to do, because there was no way she was in love with my father and made up a lie.
Mm.
Her back was against the wall. She was a 15-year-old foster child herself. She did whatever she had to do. And that's what I mean. They manipulated a 15-year-old girl to lie, to
To get what they
destroy my
want.
father's life. Yeah, to destroy my father's life. Because then she went back to the neighborhood and told that same lie. Because she had to, because you can't, where's the baby? That's what everybody's gonna ask you. Where's the baby? Oddly enough, my sister was born the October after I was born to his best friend.
Mhm.
So it's just an adult manipulated a child and she became a manipulator and just started that because she wasn't like that before. She was,
Did she keep your sister?
yeah,
Crazy.
yep. Because if it was all of that, like she couldn't, because they were trying to say that she was a child of a foster care child, so she couldn't keep me. No, that's not what it was. Because my sister came literally the October after me, and
Mm.
she stayed
Mm.
and was treated like a princess. So what was the difference? The
No,
money,
somebody that money. Yeah, I was gonna say
the
somebody had to
money.
get paid.
There was no difference other than the money, and that's all I can find as the commonality between my
I
case and
say this all the time. Follow the money.
it's the money.
Follow the money.
Rich family, all of a sudden, my parents, it's not an actual adoption because they believed up until the day I told them. I said, you illegally adopted me.
Mm.
And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, you don't adopt somebody the next day. You go to a court.
Mm-hmm.
You speak to a judge. If none of that happened, I'm not adopted.
Mm-mm.
They just changed the birth certificate and gave it to you. They just gave you a social security card with my name and just gave it to you. And then when I started working in the federal government, I got question locked because I have two names to one social security card because they never shut one off. It was just a name
Yep.
change.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yep. And that's how I knew. They were like, you have another name. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. Da 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 da. And they're like this. Okay. That's not what that means.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow. And
that's
that
my
was in the
story.
70s. And that's still
That
and
was the
that's
set.
and that's still happening, Priscilla. That
Yeah.
when's your book coming out?
Um, I wrote it. It's in like notebooks. I've cried over it because it gets really deep, especially with my dad. I've known
Mhm.
my dad for at least 4 years as a teenager, and we didn't know that we were father daughter. He
Oh
used to
my
see me.
goodness.
He, I grew up 5 minutes away from him,
Wow.
and when I met him, I literally walked to his house and told him like I had a boyfriend that lived up the block, so I used to pass his house. There was a store that he used to work at as a child that was like a gaming store that I used to
Mhm.
come into when I was a teenager. And he said, I remember used to seeing you for at least 2 to 3 years, and I used to curse you out because I have my mother's face.
Mm.
And he used to torment me. Like I used to hate going in the store, and I'm an
He
original
knew he
anime
knew
kid.
you were he knew who you were?
No, he just thought I was a kid that just happened to have her face. He didn't know I was his daughter. He never knew. So when I showed up at his house, I was in my 40s and he saw my face and he just was like, you were the kid. You were the kid from the
Wow.
store. And I had to call like people from high school who I used to hang out with, who I didn't speak to in years. It's like, remember the skinny guy that used to draw? Because my dad can draw like the wind blows. He can draw your
Mm-hmm.
face, and he's a natural artist. So he used to work in this store, and he hated to see me coming. That he had to
Mm,
take a break because he said I had the face of the woman he hated.
mm.
So I've known my father, and that's the cruelty of life.
That is cruel.
That I've seen him when I was a teenager for multiple years, that I've lived in walking distance from him, that I've had multiple friends live around where he lives. I've passed him on the streets, and he passed away during COVID in
Sorry to
2020.
hear that.
And thank you. And that was hard. That I took like really, really hard. And I was really mad at the New York system because I felt like they took my dad away, and they took what he should have, raised his daughter, because he wanted to raise an artist. He wanted to raise a kid in his light, and he never wanted to go to the military. He's a, pot, like he said, I'm a pot smoking artist. He was like, they
Mm,
lied. They lied. And
mm.
that's what angers me about the system, because you had somebody there, and we always talk about, oh, fathers never step up. He did. Him and his family did.
Did, yep. And they lied.
And you wanted the money so bad that you would destroy this man,
That's
because it
sad.
did. It destroyed him. He lived like alone for his whole life. He died alone because
Did
he
he
didn't
ever have
trust.
any other children?
Yes, he did. He had three sons, and I was told by the New York system, I can't find my brothers because there's no way to prove that they're my brothers. Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Yep. He has given me their names, but it's like a fight. And if you have knocked on as many doors as I've knocked on, and it takes from you,
Mm-hmm.
and you try to recover, and it takes from you, and then you try to recover, and then you have two deceased birth parents, and you're in your 40s now, and you go to doctors, and it takes from you. I want to find my brothers, but in the back of my mind, I don't know what I'm looking for, and I
Mm.
don't know what I'm going to get, because I don't know what experience they have had, and I don't know if I can internalize and save them, because I feel like sometimes I'm drowning with the things that I see just from strangers.
I just recently, my brother, we reunited like officially because he got out of prison and he asked that he could move in. And it's something to try to help your family. Long story short, he stayed here for 47 days. I tried to help. He decided that it was too hard. He said life is too hard doing it the right way. And it was just so hurtful because like I had that question, like, what was I hoping for? Right.
Hmm.
Like I was truly hoping that like we could help you better
Yeah.
your life, but the system has just institutionalized him so much where it's just like he can't do anything um without the help of a system.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that they can continue to do this, and it's not just him. I see this in my work too. These kids, they don't have a high school diploma, they don't have any education, they don't have driver's license, they've never had a bank account. Then they go from foster care to troubled teen institution to juvenile to prison, and then you get out at 30, 40 years old and you're like, you
What
have
do I do?
nothing. What do you
Hmm.
do?
Yep.
What do you do? And then it kind of makes me have like survivor's guilt almost. Like
Hmm.
one thing about reunification, I loved reuniting with both sides of my family, but like one thing that it really hurts is that like I really do see that like, hey, I had a bad childhood. Like my adopted parents did not do great by me. But something happened there because I chose a different path. Even going through the horribleness that I went through my adoption, I still chose a different path. And it just gets me frustrated because they say, "Oh, it was easier for you," and I'm like, it honestly wasn't. It was
Yeah.
actually, I feel like it was harder because I was alone. At least you guys had each other in the hood, like
Yeah.
y'all hood, like. But I had no one in a small white town, and then I was abandoned at 15 years old, and like you, like had my own apartment at 17 and having to deal with being human trafficked and having to deal like not trusting every adult because some adults like how do you trust an adult after they've trafficked you, right?
Right.
And it's just really really hard. But reunification sometimes, like you said, it just like it's like what are you expecting? So I
Right.
always used to like push people like you reunify, reunify. But now I'm just like, girl, take your time and
Hmm.
do it on your own. But
Because
also
the
in the
fantasy
back
in
of
your head is
it's
not
not gonna be it. But on the
never.
same token, on the flip side, other side of the coin, time is not promised to nobody, as you know.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
get if you feel it in your heart, just don't go in with like these fantasies going with reality.
Yep.
They may be great, they may be crackheads. Who
Yep.
knows?
Yes.
Right? Who
You like, oh.
knows? Hey, sis, let me borrow 50 cent. Like, right? You got a single cigarette. Right? Pick up something from the corner store. Right?
Them earrings is nice.
Right? You meet your brother, you missing your whole jewelry set.
Yep.
No. But they might be fantastic people. My husband met his
Yeah.
dad through ancestry. He never knew who his father was. His dad is amazing. He looks just like the picture thing that you said. My
Hmm.
husband never looked like anyone in his family because like
Yeah.
he knew his mom, but like he kind of looked like his grandma a little bit, but like not somewhere you're like that's your family. When we found his dad and through our genealogist and they sent us the first photos, I was like, he looked just like my husband did in college. I was like, that's without a doubt,
Yeah.
like that's your daddy,
Yeah.
right? And then it was crazy. He had a half brother who was also, we call them the bastards because his dad was a Rolling Stone. He had his 5 children with his wife, and so far they've had two have popped up through ancestry the last
Oh
20
wow.
years. So his other bastard brother, and then Christopher popped up this year. So we don't know how many more are gonna pop up, but they seem to be popping up. And him, Chris, and his bastard brothers look like twins, and they're
Oh
only like 6 months
wow.
apart, and they look exactly like twins. I was like, genetics is crazy, yo.
Yes.
Like genetics is crazy. And the funny thing is, his other children don't look as much like him. They look more like their mom.
The wife.
So
Because those women were thinking about him. That's why.
those bastards look just like
Yeah.
him.
The women were thinking about him. They was like, when is he going to come
Yeah.
back by? When is he going to come help take care of these kids? That woman wasn't
Right?
thinking about him. He there every day.
Right, but it was his reunification has been beautiful. They're like a traditional old black family. They have a family reunion every year. He's still with his wife. I feel like it's like so odd.
Oh,
I'm like, oh hi Miss Cynthia, how you doing? Like
she
she
like this.
always reminds me. She was like, Carlos, we were separated at that time. I said, okay, girl.
Okay. Whatever.
I said, okay, girl.
A lot of separation.
I said, two came up. Oh, ain't no way, but it ain't my business. you know? Um,
Mm-mm-mm.
but I'm just so happy that he has like his family. So it does work out sometimes. And he has his
Yeah.
brothers and his siblings, and they're amazing and they all love each other and they've accepted him. And it's just beautiful. It really is. So, like you said, it could be mine, it could be we don't know. But I think
Yeah.
it's worth giving yourself a shot, when
Right.
you feel ready and when you feel healed, right? To do so. So Priscilla, thank you so much for coming on the War to This Day podcast. I ask
Oh,
every
yeah.
guest at the end of the show, what's one piece of advice that you would give a foster youth or an adoptee that would have a similar experience as you? What's one piece of advice you would give them?
Uh, be honest with yourself. If adoption is what you want, do the research, but not on the child, but do the research on yourself. Are you ready to take in a foster child? Are you ready to take in to be an adoptee parent? And not just on the surface for, Instagram likes, for your pictures, but through the tough times, because a lot of these children come with problems
Mm-hmm.
and we need that, strong individual to sometimes put themselves aside and pour into these children like you would pour into your own child.
Mm,
So, advice that I have, if you're going to do this, really research and think, am I going to treat this child the way I would treat my natural child? If my natural child called me up and they said they murdered somebody and don't say nothing, and I don't say nothing, am I going to treat this child the same exact way? Or am I
mm,
going to be like, oh, that ain't my kid, I'm about to tell on her?
mm-hmm,
Then that's not the child, then that's not the situation for you,
mm-hmm. I
because that's
love
the
that.
difference.
I love that. Well, Priscilla, thank you so much for coming on the show. And light shiners, like I said, always shine your light. That's my slogan because you never know who you might inspire. You've definitely inspired me.
Thank
You
you.
have a light and like a hope. And like your dad was right, a fire, right? A fire. I can feel it, right? I can feel it. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your fire with us. And light shiners, until next time, always shine your light.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for